Oh boy, second to last boss. One that controls like absolutely no other part of the game, really.
No, it's just the airship level.
It's sort of like the airplane, but it's
But
also
not
on
quite.
rails, so it's more
Yeah.
of a I
It's a
don't
little
know.
weird.
It's a little strange. It's also interesting.
Yeah, it's also interesting. The new
Eh,
professor of N Cortex.
It's interesting because like out of nowhere they just have Coco take over for a boss fight. It was unexpected.
it also doesn't mean anything because you're in a ship the entire time.
Well, yeah, that was Coco's thing in the original Crash 3.
Yeah.
Frustratingly enough, people really wanted to play as Coco on foot, and they finally got that in Wrath of Cortex, but it was done kind of.
And we regretted it ever since.
Well,
I would never ask for anything again.
the thing about that, though, is that it's not bad to play. Coco's levels in Wrath of Cortex are some of the best parts of the game, just in terms of pure design. It's just that the fact that you were that she she didn't really have any moves exactly. She was the game's basic platforming style. Like there was. It was disappointing, and that soured the experience. But the level design is good.
Now,
And
one
well,
thing I enjoy
yeah.
about this fight in this version compared to the original is nowhere near the amount of ear rape in terms of explosions and crunching noise.
Yeah.
You mean all the metal clanging you're hearing from the lasers
Yeah.
and shit.
The sound effects in the original PS1 version of this fight were loud. And they were very, very loud in a simplistic way. Like, they had to...
Yeah.
They had to be in order to overcome their own sound quality limitations, so you could tell what they were. It was a thing that a lot of sound effects from that era had, but a lot of them do it in a graceful way that makes them charming, like the classic Metal Gear exclamation sound.
I wouldn't say charming in this instance, but
Well, charming in the sense that it's memorable, and it sounds like it's intentional.
well, it's memorable in this case for the wrong reasons. Also,
Well-
I swear every individual piece has less health than the original.
It's Wait.
No, you know what I think it is? If you notice, if you pay attention to your shots, notice how they slightly home into the target. They do bend, like on the way to the target. I don't think they did that in the original game. So it's not so much them having less health, it's like more of your shots are connecting.
Yeah.
Perhaps.
Did the back end of the ship always look like the tiger's face?
No, that is new for this game. It's also a giant penis,
Ah, Fruit Bazooka.
I mean-
I love thee.
if we're gonna call it like it is.
Following in the footsteps of Rouge the Bat, I see.
Let's see, yeah. Yeah, you're right. I don't know what it is about vehicles being the shape of penises that the developers find so funny.
Oh,
I thought you were going to
okay.
try to destroy me anyway.
The way you said that, it just kind of lost all of its potential intimidation factor.
I'm not going to destroy you. I'm going to send you to another dimension.
Compared to Clancy Brown's performance and I believe it's Lex Lang.
Lex Lang is it
voices-
now, yeah.
Yeah, Lex Lang. I find Cortex performance in the original just a little more on the nose, I would say, because by the third game in the original, you got that Cortex was just absolutely fucking tired of this shit. Because his plans have already been foiled twice at this point. He's tired. He wants nothing to do with this anymore. And I thought Clancy Brown did a good job of delivering that. Lex Lang, I think, doesn't kind of hit it as well. But I don't want to say he's phoning it in either.
Yeah, he didn't really emphasize it. Maybe didn't realize. Maybe didn't really. Not I say didn't realize, but didn't think of it as an important part of the performance. Considering this is an old game and an old character, it might just be something that wasn't thought of in the same way that it would have been at the time in the voice directing room.
Potentially.
I mean, it'd be one thing if this were a remake done by the same people, but it's unfortunately not. For as loyal as it is, it's not. It's Vicarious Visions, a completely different team taking what they see of the game as it was made. And yeah, they got some of the original games like level data from Naughty Dog, I think, but apart from
But they would have
that,
to.
it's just what they make of it.
I wonder how much. Do you think the original team was consulted in any way?
Well, they were probably called and asked questions and all that, but
Who is this? How'd you get this number?
I don't know you people.
Also, am I the only one that never got the idea to use Fruit Bazooka on the machines?
Really?
The ones with the targets on their back? Yeah.
I think that's what you're supposed
well, no,
to do. But
I always spit on them.
Yeah, no, I always spin on them too.
yeah, I always spun on them as well. The Fruit Bazooka is a bit too slow. Like, it's a
Gotta
cool
go
power,
fast.
but it's a bit too slow to want to use in combat. I always wound up using it on boxes and things.
Mm-hmm.
In
That's
the
kind of the
original,
idea.
I'm not sure you can do this here, but in the original, if you shot an apple with the Fruit Bazooka, you would collect the apple. You could collect fruit by shooting them, which
With fruit.
Yeah.
which makes no goddamn sense, but it was something that you could do. And one of the things that I did was, like, when I got caught in the dark in a bonus stage, for example,
Yeah, you just fire because it lights up the area slightly ahead of you.
yeah, I would fire because, well, first of all, not only would I fire, I'd skim the area with the crosshair, because whenever it passed over a fruit or a box, it would go red, and that told me where things were. So it was a good way to MacGyver yourself out of a darkness trap. Just kind of an outside the box way that I started to use it. This was around the time I played Crash 3 that I actually started to stop being a sucky little kid at video games and started to actually, intuitively
Learn how to
pick up
play them,
tricks.
yeah.
I have bazooka. Now I must be man.
Yeah. Crash 3 was the first Crash game that I remember feeling pretty goddamn satisfied with at the end in terms of how I finished the game.
Which is funny now because the bazooka is now one of the least used items I have in Crash 3.
Really?
Yeah.
Any particular
like,
reason, or?
I was very good because I'd rather just avoid the thing entirely or just jump over it.
Well, when I go
But back when I was a kid, I shot everything.
Yeah, well, when I go
Well,
back to Crash
it's the
3,
safest
though,
means to do anything.
when I go back to Crash 3, though, I actually do still use the bazooka to shoot things in the dark the same way I used to.
Well, it
see,
just makes a lot of things easier.
So, like in a case like this, I wouldn't even bother shooting that guy over there. I would just slide jump and spin over it.
Meh.
Yeah.
I guess because when you try and go after all the damn platinums, you burn it into your head of how you play this level, like fast, just to beat it.
Yeah.
Even as you're going for the boxes and all that sort of shit, if you're not even going for the relic, there's just a certain way I play stages nowadays because of past experiences, and a lot of it doesn't involve the fruit bazooka.
You can't play it normally anymore.
Yes.
So how's Super
to this
Metroid
day,
going for you?
Yeah, I was gonna say, to this day, I still don't know what a normal route Super Metroid looks like.
Ah, man.
If you were to play it, quote unquote, normally, how lost would you think you would get?
I couldn't do it.
You couldn't do it?
I couldn't do it. No, okay, let's figure. I can do it, but the urge to not wall jump anywhere would be worse than trying to hold off masturbation for No Nut November.
Good to know.
That charming thought aside,
Too much?
This just kind of, like, I never consciously thought about it, but I think that's why the main reason that I avoid speedruns, though, is because I actually like to be able to go back to a game and have an experience that's sort of similar to the first time I played it. So
Well, I mean, it depends on whether you play it like a speedrun or not, because...
I know, but, like, during the process of learning how to speedrun a game, you have to practice it pretty damn hard to the point where it's really, really goddamn ingrained in your muscle memory to do certain things in certain ways. And once you've done that, once you've ingrained a way of playing a game into your brain that hard, there's no real way to go back to playing it the way you did your first time.
But you know what? it is kind of interesting in a fun, challenging sort of way when you do try to deliberately go back to how you played it originally, or at least how you thought you played it originally. Because a couple of months ago, when Ben and I did the Mario Mania for Extra Life charity thing, we got to Mario World, and one of the rules was that no capes. You're not even allowed to collect the items.
So you had to play it normally.
You had to use you can only use the mushroom or the fire flower. I forgot how difficult that game was when you didn't use the cape for everything.
Really?
Yeah, and I'm not just talking about like just flying over shit. I mean just using the cape to spin on stuff and slow your descents. When you have to play it like Mario 3, it gets pretty fucking challenging, especially when you ignore switch palaces.
It's just like it's interesting when I go back to play a game that I haven't played in a while, because one of the things that often happens with me is my gameplay style is like a test of my own thought process. So whenever I play through a game, I tend to do it the same way without thinking about it, because that's how I reacted when I was going in and I didn't know what I was supposed to do.
Right.
So I make the same mistakes in the same places without realizing until after the fact that I did this before and I made the same mistake then too.
See, this is the thing. I love watching speedruns because I like being entertained by that, especially if it's like some of my favorite games of all time, because I can see, oh wow, like I played this for years and I did not know you could do this or do that. At the same time, if I'm going back to playing those games, I'm not going to try half of the shit that they do because it's just not within reasonability for me. Not because of like, I respect the game way too much, because I think it's a real dickhead thing to say. Of course they respect the game, they played so many hours of it. I'm pretty sure they respect the game. But it's more like, I don't feel like making 76 frame perfect inputs just to skip 1 minute of a level, I'd rather just play the game normally just for the sake of, getting enjoyment out of it the way I get enjoyment out of it.
Well, it's less an aversion to a certain kind of experience, but it's more like I'm attached to that pseudo-blind run. That's the way I like to play the games, and the moment I commit that much practice to the experience, I know I'm going to lose the experience that I prefer pretty much forever.
It is, to this day, why I have still not have gotten Excalibur 2 for Final Fantasy IX. Because part of it is because...
the game too much.
Yeah, I love the game too much to just skip past all that shit.
Yeah.
For a weapon that's only useful because you're speedrunning.
Yeah, it's bragging rights, pure and simple. It's just straight up bragging rights. I would like to do it at some point, but it's like I got to be on my deathbed.
Excalibur 2 was basically Squared trying to give you a trophy-like experience, an achievement-like experience before those things were invented.
Yeah.
Well, at the same time, legitimately making it Steiner's best weapon. Like it was his ultimate weapon. Mm-hmm. But it's like you ignored everything else to get that sword.
So much so that you're pretty much required to use it now to beat the game.
Yeah, but at the same time, it's Steiner's ultimate weapon, and unfortunately, in spite of being the game's knight, he's not the game's best character. Like, he has some things going for him, but for the most part, you're probably not going to be relying too much on him by the time you get Excalibur 2.
Or, given how fast you're playing through the game, you probably don't even have half of his abilities.
Yeah, that's also true.
Yeah, he spends the most time out of the party, really.
No, I like Steiner. Steiner was always in my final four. My final four at the end of the game.
Yeah, but is that him being a good character to have functionally, or is it you just preferring him?
I prefer... Alright, so out of all the characters that can deal quadruple-digit damage by the end game, I feel Steiner's is the easiest to do so without needlessly grinding.
Oh yeah, his strength
because...
Because he's all muscle and nothing else.
Yeah, he has the magic arts with Vivi, which is pretty cool in itself, and he also has like abilities like Shock and all that sort of thing, which always does high damage. If you want the same numbers of, say, Zidane or Freya, you gotta grind Dragon Crest or Thievery.
Oh, well, I never had that problem with Zidane, but...
Zidane's not too bad because of Thievery, but everyone else, yeah.
Zidane is...
I'm one of those...
Steiner can deal high damage without having to rely on trances half of the time.
Yeah.
Let me put it that way.
That's also true. The thing about Zidane, stat-wise, and we're talking about this in entirely the wrong playthrough, but Zidane is not so much just a pure thief as he is a warrior-thief hybrid. It's a strange thing to see, considering... It's a strange thing to realize as you play through the game, considering that he's... Ooh. He's written as being just a thief, but stat-wise, he always felt more like a warrior. Maybe it's the butterfly swords that make him feel that way.
But speaking of Final Fantasy IX, where can they find a commentary on Final Fantasy IX?
On this
Ryan?
channel, very much so.
Yeah, I fucking love SGB.
You haven't gotten to 9 yet.
No, we're not gonna be for a while, but
I take it you're going to be playing that for the channel?
no, Matt will be playing 9.
Oh, really?
Because I agreed to 10 and 7.
Oh god, but they released Final Fantasy IX on PC and consoles. As
PS4, yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of a disappointing port.
What is it about it that you don't like? To me, it's they didn't do anything about the load times.
Yeah.
The load times are there.
Although they at least gave you some nifty little options.
What also bugs me are the text fonts, and that seems like a really petty complaint if you don't know what I'm talking about. But Square with their Final Fantasy ports lately seems to have developed a habit of using the most bland-looking text fonts for everything.
Yeah.
Presumably in the interest of making everything mobile-friendly, but
I guess
big basic letters and
ugly.
large touch zones for everything. But they don't change that for the console version, so it just winds up looking weird and sloppy.
Sloppy. Yeah.
Maybe in 30 years when they get to the Final Fantasy IX remake.
Like we're ever going to get a Final Fantasy IX remake. If we do, it's probably going to be some action fest like the Final Fantasy VII one is going to be.
Well, at this point, if you're doing 7, you're almost obligated to do 8 and 9.
Not really.
Not as much, because they're nowhere near as popular as 7.
They're nowhere near as popular, and there's not as much going for either of them. I mean,
Yeah, but here's the thing. 10 onwards, well, mostly 10, but almost everything from 10 onwards has gotten ports to other things.
Yeah, ports to other things. And
Ports and slight updates and remasters and all that. And everything from 6 downwards has gotten full remakes, redos, etc., etc.
Or shitty mobile versions.
Well, yes,
Yeah.
but you know what I mean, though. It's like there's like 50 different versions of Final Fantasy IV. You're kind of
8 and 9 are the least touched.
yes. So
8 specifically.
yeah. So you're kind of if you're going to do 7, you kind of owe it to the other PlayStation games to kind of do something along those lines as well, because they're kind of left in that void of you can't really keep porting them, but.
There's the thing, though. Final Fantasy VII, because of the complication of Final Fantasy VII, has so much more lore stuff to work into the main game, just as flavor stuff, so that you can get that extra amount of detail going in the game worlds. Whereas Final Fantasy VIII is so underdeveloped within its own game world that I'm not really sure.
Well, then
what
all
they
the more
do.
reason to potentially remake it, so you can actually fix a lot of those things.
Yeah, it's just
But it's got a lot going against it compared to 7.
I'm
not disagreeing, and that's why they're doing 7 first. But
I would
Yeah.
like to see a Final Fantasy VIII remake, if only so that they could get it right this time.
yeah, it's that weird situation where I almost want to see bad games, quote unquote bad games, get remade. It's because you can maybe fix the problems and get a good game out of it.
Well, I won't ever call Final Fantasy VIII a bad game in the traditional sense. It's more a bad game in the random whining YouTube comment box sense, where it's really okay, but the problems people have with it, they talk about in such a hyperbolic way that they wind up sounding like whiners about it. But
Well, in my opinion, 8 is a fine game bogged down by a lot of stupid shit.
yeah, that's basically it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's got qualities, but it's also got
Draw.
it's got issues.
Yeah.
One of my most famous little clips is me ranting about the draw system during a Mega Man game, but I don't actually have that much of a problem with the draw system. The problem with the draw system is that it relies on the player to pace themselves intelligently and not spend 3 hours grinding. But it's an RPG, of course you're gonna do that.
Also, assuming you don't know how to grind triple triads, so
Yeah. They probably should have highlighted that better in the game, that you could get items from the card game. That's something you kind of have to discover on your own, and a lot of players didn't discover that until someone else told them. Wow, this has become Tangent Bandicoot the playthrough, hasn't it?
Oh, you weren't here.
N-Sane Trilogy.
Yeah. Also, you weren't here for Bomberman.
Oh, wasn't
Oh.
Yeah, that's right, because I had nothing to say about Bomberman. Don't tell me the three of you had nothing to say about Bomberman either.
Tangent
Well,
Central in the later parts.
It's Bomberman. You throw bombs at shit and it blows up.
Okay.